I noted down some of the buzzwords that were discussed in detail in the past 1.5 days. So we were talking about safety, costs, charging time, stability, durability, energy density, but also capacity. And these are all relevant aspects to consider when looking into EV batteries. But there's one important point that we have not yet discussed. And I would like to show you in the following slides how relevant sustainability aspects will become in the near future, also for Chinese battery manufacturers when it comes to serving the batteries markets. In my presentation, I would like to focus on two elements. On the one side, on the new European battery regulation, and on the other side, I would like to share with you some insights into the work of the Global Battery Alliance. So, starting off with the European battery regulation, this is a slide that the European Commission used in the past to explain what the scope is. And what you can see, and this is a very new approach in European legislation, is this holistic approach. So the entire life cycle is covered, starting from mining and processing over the battery manufacturing, the use, but also the end-of-life management. And this is new, as in the past, in the old batteries directive, we were only looking into parts of the life cycle. A very important point is that the responsibilities lie with the so-called economic operator that is placing these batteries on the European market. So let's take an example. You're producing batteries, you want to sell them to the European market, then you are the one that has to comply with all the requirements and has to show that you comply with all the requirements. If a Chinese car manufacturer is planning to place cars on the European market, he will have to show compliance with all these requirements. So this is not limited to the European market and to European players. It's also affecting actors outside the European Union who are planning or already active on the European market. On the timeline, I put together this slide in March, and in the meantime there were some recent developments. So what we know is that following right now 2.5 years of negotiations, the adoption of this new battery regulation is expected for mid of June, and we expect the entry into force for July 2023. So it's coming up, and it's in front of our doors. So we need to be prepared. What are the requirements not only impacting nickel producers, but raw material producers in general, and as I said, also the economic operators placing the batteries on the European market? So first of all, there's one aspect which relates to the carbon footprint of the electric vehicle battery. There are 3 different aspects that will be covered and where information has to be provided. So in the first stage, the carbon footprint of the battery has to be calculated. So we need to know what is the methodology to calculate this carbon footprint. And there's already a program in place in the European Union since 10 years, which is called Product Environmental Footprint Program, and that is going to be the basis. And we are working right now on a kind of rule book which is defining on how you have to calculate the footprint of your battery from mining to the final assembly of the battery. Once we know how the carbon footprint of the battery looks like, the European Commission is going to derive so-called performance classes. So there will be a kind of ranking, what is the best performing, what is the least performing battery. And in a very late stage, we are going to define thresholds. And this will be discussed in 4.5 years, but there will be a threshold set. And only if batteries are below this carbon footprint threshold, they are allowed to be placed on the European market. This would be the timeline, knowing that we are running late and that you want to join and enjoy your tea break. I'm going to keep this brief. You can see that there's not too much time left before you have to start working on putting together information on your carbon footprint. I already mentioned this, what, when and how. So there's a guidance document which is currently under preparation, where we as Nickel Institute contribute. And this is going to define on how you have to calculate your carbon footprint. So it's a very concrete guidance that you have to follow. The data that you provide have to go through an audit. And you can see that the timelines are very tight. So the economic operator placing the batteries on the market will have to provide this carbon footprint declaration already by January 2025. The important point is mentioned here at the bottom. Many things are still unclear, and we expect in the coming months more clarification by the European Commission in guidance documents that still are under development. The other important point from a raw materials perspective is what we call ESG and due diligence requirements. So the raw materials for which this kind of information have to be provided are predominantly cobalt, lithium, nickel, and natural graphite. So there's a very strong focus on nickel, cobalt containing battery technologies. The scope is also covering secondary raw materials, so independent if your raw materials come from a mine or from a recycling installation, you will have to show that you comply with these so-called due diligence requirements. There are some exemptions made for small and medium-sized enterprises, so if you are below a certain threshold, you don't have to comply with these requirements. And a very important point from our perspective is that industry has the possibility to develop own schemes that then can be used to show compliance. In the battery regulation, again, we only see a general description of the risks, and we are also expecting here secondary legislation, so guidance documents, which will help us to better understand what needs to be done and how to demonstrate that you're complying with the requirements. But also here I would like to point out the very short timelines. So between entry into force and showing compliance, there are only 2 years left. Now, shifting away from this European discussion, putting things into a more global perspective, there's the Global Battery Alliance. This is an organization which was formed under the World Economic Forum. In the meantime, I checked this morning, they have more than 140 partner organizations. And as you can see, it's a wide range of different stakeholder groups. So it's not only companies, but we also see governments, academia, non-governmental organizations being part of the Global Battery Alliance. And the aim of this GBA is to establish a fully sustainable batteries value chain, from mining to the use to the recycling. There are 3 different partnerships that you can find in the Global Battery Alliance. So on the one side, and I'm going to focus on that one, we have the battery passport action partnership, where the core is to develop a so-called battery passport. And the idea, the concept standing behind is that for each battery that is placed on the market, there will be a kind of QR code that you can scan, and then you have access to all kind of relevant information, be it carbon footprint, be it where are the raw materials coming from, be it due diligence requirements, or also recycling. And that is going to be, as I said, a key element of the Global Battery Alliance. Last year was a very productive year for the GBA. They developed 3 different guidance documents which were published. These documents can be downloaded from the GBA website, so they are publicly available. The most important one is the document in the middle, which is the Greenhouse Gas Rulebook. As there, it is, again, as on the European side, defined on how you have to calculate the battery footprint, or how you have to contribute your data to your customer if they are planning to get their batteries audited or certified under the Global Battery Alliance. So this rulebook the first version was published in September 2022, and as I said, it contains a lot of information, very clear guidance on each step of the batteries value chain and how you have to calculate the batteries footprint. So now taking a step back, and what are we doing as an industry association representing producers of nickel? And I can say that my colleagues from cobalt, from lithium are working on similar projects. So we are on the one side developing guidance. This is a document, it's right now shown here in English, but my colleague David from the Beijing office, who's also here in the room, translated this document into Chinese. It gives you a detailed insight in how nickel producers have to calculate their carbon footprint in accordance with the requirements on the European side as well as on the Global Battery Alliance side. It is important that we develop this guidance, as it ensures that the way how data are collected in China is done the same way as in Europe, in North America, or elsewhere in the world. Again, publicly available on our websites, so if you're interested, you can visit. Usually what we do is that we publish so-called industry average data. So this would be the average over our member companies, where you can see information on the carbon footprint, the energy which is going into nickel production, where do we have hotspots in nickel production, in which stage of the production, but also other information like, for example, water footprint. We provide this information also to our member companies, and they then can use it to satisfy the demands, for example, for the Global Battery Alliance. On due diligence, we developed a standard. This is a so-called joint due diligence standard that we drafted together with our colleagues from the zinc industry, from the lead industry, and from the copper industry. It's covering one aspect of due diligence, namely the so-called OECD Annex 2 risks, where we are talking about risks which usually occur in conflict and high-risk areas. So this is not enough for the European Battery Regulation, and it will not be enough for the Global Battery Alliance. So we are working right now together with the colleagues from the copper mark on developing something specific for nickel that then can be used by nickel producers to show that they are complying with the requirements in the battery regulation, but also in the Global Battery Alliance. So I will stop here. I'm running late 2 minutes, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions.
抱歉啊，我刚才说中文应该没有那个没办法回答，只能用英文啊。What's your thinking about battery relation business between China and G7 in the future? I think you know what I'm asking.